Well, hello, human. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Be You Get Paid podcast. I'm your host, Amy Taylor, and I have one goal by being in your ears: to explore as many conversations and perspectives as possible on stuff we did not learn in school. You know, stuff that would have actually helped a lot more of us thrive rather than just survive as grown-ups in an often challenging and ever-changing world. As the title might suggest, this includes anything involved with knowing ourselves, understanding money, and generally anything that might offer some insight into how we can all be happier humans. With that in mind, wherever you're listening, you'll find links to some of the best resources I have personally found to help with all of those things. Sometimes I'll talk about these in a bit more detail, and I want you to know I will only ever recommend products, services, and companies that I am a customer or user of myself. Now, we're all grown-ups here, and as such, you'll possibly hear the occasional use of grown-up language. More importantly, anything discussed here is personal opinion and intended for conversational and educational purposes only, and should not be taken as financial or investment advice. That's the housekeeping done. Let's get into what I hope is some helpful chat. Welcome, Mr. Brian Parsley. Thank you for doing your hair.
Yes.
Looking good. Haven't seen you for a while.
I even did the back.
Amazing. Party up front, and was it party up top? Business up top, party down below. So I wanted to talk to you primarily. Welcome to the Be You Get Paid podcast, because this my goal with this podcast is to dive into things that none of us were taught at school that perhaps would be helping us focus on our happiness and our personal freedom and thriving rather than just surviving in the modern world that seems to have gone a bit crazy in the last couple of years. And just sort of diving into things whereby people can start thinking a bit deeper than their everyday laser focus or everyday blinkered, busy life. We were just talking off screen before about how many people just seem to be, I don't want to say midlife crisis, because not everybody would consider themselves to be midlife, but certainly myself, my age group, and COVID accelerated this for a lot of people. Just what the hell is it all about? Like I'm working so hard, I'm not where I thought I'd be, or I don't love what I'm doing, and disillusioned, and just how do we navigate that and start getting people to focus on the right things, or be willing to clear space to even know what to focus on to get out of that funk or that rut. And I met you when I started my solopreneur journey. You were coaching, I think, on video scripts for learning sales and marketing. And, ever since then, I've just kind of always looked at you as someone who's it's a stand-up guy, good guy. You've built a nice life for yourself. I think you were consulting, speaking, and leadership coaching, would you say, until COVID?
I've always been in the sales, customer service, culture, leadership, development.
Yeah.
Mostly corporate. In fact,
Yeah.
I would say 95% corporate. Yeah.
Yeah. And you, just to go back a step then, because a lot of this initial part of the chat, I try and focus on what people have done for a living and how that might have changed when they took a big leap of faith, or in the last 3 years, obviously, a lot of us were forced to pivot and change what we were doing or think a bit differently. So where did you grow up? What do you remember as a kid about wanting to grow up and be X career-wise? And what did you go into to get to this point? If you can put 50 or so years into 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. I actually wish I wasn't wearing my underwear right now, because I would give you something off the wall that's kind of special. I grew up in West Virginia. Yeah, I know that sounds, actually, now that I say that out loud, not so
I think
good.
most of us are sitting in our underwear these days.
I grew up in, yes, please, I actually have a helper. My beautiful South African wife overheard me, and she's coming. Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Thank you. Is it Shani? Shani.
Shani. Yeah.
Thank you, Shani.
She's not going to talk. She said, "You're welcome." So I grew up in a little place called West Virginia. A lot of people joke we marry our cousins and things like that, which I do think actually my great grandparents were first cousins, but I don't have DNA proof of that. But I do believe that is the story. So I grew up there. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. So my dad worked hard, worked in a chemical plant for 40 years because his dad worked there for 40 years, right? Mm-hmm. And And I think that for me, we have these illusions of what happiness is. And a lot of times it's what we don't have, right? And pain is a much bigger motivator than pleasure for anyone. And that's just a human behavior. So when I was 18 years old, I'll never forget, I cut out a bunch of magazines, a lot of different things. And I glued these little pictures like a dream board. And I glued them on a piece of cardboard. And I was very fortunate. My dad and my stepmom, they were hoarders. So, because of that, it didn't get thrown away. And I found it one time and I got it framed and it sits in my office. And you can even see the things that are on here, right? This is when I was 20 years old. Look at the top, death before poverty, make money, cash, luxury, try it, go for it, all these things.
Pure joy. Interesting that an 18-year-old would think to put that on there. Yeah.
At 18. And then 18. What's interesting is I have that on my wall as a reminder. Mm-hmm. A reminder that dreams change. If I think about, and you fast forward to today and I'm in my 50s, I think about my dream board would be moments, would be family, would be the ability to serve other people. Because I think as you get older, you begin to realize these other things we chase are really not that important. Now, make no mistake about it. I still love to have nice things and I love to travel and I like luxury and I like money and I like the things that afford you. But again, it affords those moments that I want. But even if you didn't have it, and by the way, you want a really long life, be poor. Because the days feel like they never end. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think that, striving for these goals help us have choices in life and money doesn't change who you are. And I think that's a fallacy. Money makes you more of what you already are. And if you're kind, I think you'll be more kind. And I think that we use that sometimes as an excuse. And a lot of times we actually behave ourselves into our predicament, whether that's being unfit, health, money, career, relationships, all these things that we chase, we say we want, yet we do the opposite, and I also think we need to understand that we all suffer from two big fears. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? And if you don't really have those fears, there's another word, it's called narcissism. And so you kind of have those two dichotomies, and are juxtaposed, but at the same time, these things are driving our life. And you throw in the unfortunate piece of social media where we now set the bar at an unrealistic level. And even, people's life, and I'm saying this and somebody's thinking, wow, I want to be like that. No, I'm screwed up. I'm a human. I'm defective. I have problems. My wife got angry with me several times today. There's all these things that we have, but online you see the snapshot at that moment. And then you see that. And I think it's a reminder for us to also know that we don't know how long we're going to be here. And I want to be able to look back on those last moments and say, I did okay. So as I got older, I got a job, selling and so forth. But what's interesting is, I don't know if you could see, it's kind of over there by the three little monkeys there. There's a little award, and that award came from when I was in 8th grade. I'm going to get up. I don't have on underwear, so let me just show you.
I actually panicked when you said that. I thought you meant you weren't wearing anything. You can have no underwear under your shorts. I don't care. Can you blur?
No, I have. I just meant I was being funny, but you can blur that out. So when I got in trouble in elementary school all the time. You talk too much. You don't sit down. Shut up. Do what you're supposed to do. Don't be the class clown. And a teacher when I was in 8th grade. I was like 8th grade, and Mrs. Ball was her name, and she came up to me and said, I enrolled you into a speech contest. And I was like, okay. And I said, what's it on? And she said, you're going to give a 10-minute talk on optimism at the Optimist Club. And I told her, I said, Miss Ball, I don't know anything about eyesight. And she goes, no, that's optometry. Stupid. Right. And this is back in the 80s. They could say that. And so nowadays I'd be like, that really triggered me, and I'm going to need to file.
You hurt my feelings.
Yeah. But, so I went through this. I won. I came in first place. And this is my award. And you can see it however many years ago that was, right?
Awesome.
Sitting right here.
They need to bring that award back.
That was from 1987, something like that, when I got this. And again, everything in here on my shelves and everything from my YouTube placard to, this, everything has a meaning and a reminder, for me. And I became obsessed with being a student of learning. How can I be the best communicator? How can I learn? And back in those days, which was pre-internet, I was listening to cassette tapes and watching TV, and I would watch preachers and politicians, and not so much for content, but just really trying to understand why do I want to watch them? It's so engaging. Like what makes them funny, or what makes them sincere, and then kind of adapting my own style, and I did a series of things from working fast food to retail and pursuing these things and doing Toastmasters and learning my craft. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s before I got my first gig paid. It's really interesting, when you look at it that way, that how many years it took before and how many people are willing to commit to something that you love, that it's the right thing, that you possibly can make money doing, but you don't know, is it really worth putting that effort into something that the unknown is there, right? And I think that's the issue nowadays more than ever, is most people want money, they want to be an entrepreneur, or they want to succeed in their role or their job, but because they also need to have certainty, that they're not willing to have patience. Well, I've been doing this 7 months, haven't made any money yet. Well, no shit, maybe it's going to take another 7 months or 7 years. Are you willing to do you believe in it enough that you're willing to stick it out? That's the question. And even when I started making money, believe me, we're talking $500 a talk. It wasn't 15 or 20,000 back then. It was literally, and it wasn't even $500. A lot of times it was, if you'll make a donation to a charity, I'll speak, and I got really lucky, and, we were able to, sell, a couple little businesses and begin doing that. And now fast forward during COVID, again, I was a solopreneur after we sold our last company in 2012. And that business kind of took a nosedive like most businesses, in 2020, 2021. And so, ran across a guy that I met many, many, many years ago. And we started a company. It's called The Constance Group. So the reason why I say that, there's a hotel company out of India called Constance Group, but ours is Constance Group.
Right.
And theconstancegroup.com. And what's interesting about it was, his father developed the methodology that we teach, which is called, ironically, the sales funnel. And he developed that and have trademarks on that word. Sorry, Russell Brunson. But the sales funnel is trademarked, copyrighted. And we teach this methodology around how people sell. But Constance was actually my mother's name, who passed away when I was a year old. She died of pancreatic cancer.
Coincidental, or you named it after her? I
named it after her.
Oh, right. I was going to say. Yeah, okay.
Yes. Okay, that would have been really
that would have been weird.
His business... Yeah, his was Leone Resources, and then mine is, we developed the Constance Group together. So the methodology for his father, legacy, and who's in his 80s and still with us and kicking. And I asked him when he's going to retire. He said when they dragged me off stage in a body bag. So he's there. And then the Constance Group was for my mom. And mostly because her reputation from family and friends said she was one of giving to other people and sharing. And so we've built this organization. We have an office in Cape Town, South Africa, and here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we are now doing workshops and traveling and sharing and these ideas. But what's interesting is that we've come to a place now where, yes, we want to teach skills, but the skill you can't teach is how to be you, how to be authentic, how to care about other people first. And our tagline is less corporate, more human, because we all hurt. We're all, suffering. Like I said, we're broke. I'm broke, not financially, but certainly emotionally. And we have insecurities and doubts, and people see that as a weakness sometimes to share that. But I see it as really being honest with yourself first, and knowing that we don't have to strive for perfection. I think instead we just need to look in the mirror and be honest to say, what about potential? Am I giving it 100% with my significant other? Am I giving it 100% with my job or this side hustle? Sometimes you can work part-time on your fortune just by dreaming and doing. And I'll tell you when you know, and I'll shut up after this. I'll tell you when you know you found something that you truly love to do. And that is, and for me, by the way, another great passion is I'm starting to do travel vlogs, and I do that on my YouTube channel. I've made a few, and I'm going to do a lot more, is when I'm editing something in Final Cut Pro, and I sit there and I go, holy smokes, I've been doing this for 3 hours. That's when you know you're doing something you love. Because passion collapses time. I just made that up, but that's a pretty good quote.
It's good. That's good. We'll clip that. Passion collapses time.
And the reason why
it's true
is because other things are a distraction. You become almost numb to the ding of the phone, the TikTok, the whatever's popular, the IG reel, because you know this is something that you're just immersed in. So the key is, how do you feed your soul to find that and to be okay? And by the way, could be gardening. It doesn't have to be revenue generating. It just, that's what gives you purpose in life. I don't know how this 100%. Turned into a TED Talk. Please forgive me.
It's brilliant. It's made my job very easy. But I think what you've said so many things that are relevant. And we just to recap, like, first of all, it doesn't have to make you money. And a big thing that I'm trying to get across to people, and I actually engaged in a Twitter debate with someone this morning who was trying to say that creatives have to accept, a lot of creatives have ended up in poverty. It's like, well, that's not necessary. And you've said, you worked on your speaking for 30 years before you got paid for it and did various jobs along the way. I'm not here to tell everyone to go quit their job. I'm here to tell people, start something, like you say, that feeds your soul. And it might take you 10 years to even figure out what that is by just being curious about different things. Because when people are creative, and everyone is, I don't care what anyone says, but we've become this society of busy idiots who are just focusing on all the wrong things. We think we don't have time for X, Y, Z. And unfortunately, it's getting selfish about all that external stuff and going, no, I'm going to spend half an hour a day reading, writing, or 5 minutes if it needs to be to start with, to explore something I might be interested in, because that's going to put me in a better mood for all these other people in my life. And that's a far better place to then start potentially building a business, or, going to the gym or something, but just 5-10 minutes a day, reading, writing, thinking, meditating, just doing something that feeds your soul. There's a ripple effect.
Let me define it for you, because what you're saying is so true. It's called the aggregation of marginal gains. Okay. So to give you the most simple analogy that you just said, I don't have to get up at 4 a.m. If I get up 10 minutes early and all I did was read a book, that gives me 5 hours of that mastery every month. 10 minutes a day is 5 hours in an entire month. Now, what's the aggregation of marginal loss? The 1 hour a day I spend on TikTok. Times 30.
Yeah, 100%. Right? There's apps now that will give you that in years of your life. I downloaded one the other day.
I don't know if I want to see that. But so the question isn't that, do we know how to do it? The question is, how committed are we to do it? You say you want to lose weight, but you're eating sweeties. You say you want to be fit, but yet you lay on the couch. You say you want to make money, yet you want to stop at 5 o'clock and you want to moan. I'll give you a real life example. I was in Jacksonville, Florida this week, staying at the Hyatt Regency. When we came down for breakfast, not one day, but 2 days in a row, the hostess was not that friendly, was not helpful, and some could argue rude. It is what it is. That stuff doesn't really bother me so much. But I'll give you an example. When I walked up, hey, good morning. You have a coupon? Like, I'm not exaggerating. It was
I know
that
you're
kind
not.
of thing.
No,
She goes,
I know exactly what you mean.
go have a seat. And the second day, and then my server the first day, same thing. She was like, do you have your coupon? I was like, well, I might have left it in the room. Well, you can't go to the buffet unless you get your coupon. Okay, cool. So I went and got it, came back. And I left her a tip. I left her $5, even though there was nothing really to serve. It's just a buffet. But I left her $5 only because, I didn't want to be that guy, because then she'll blame me.
It's American culture to tip regardless, isn't it?
I know. Well, this is going to blow your mind then. So then the next day I came down, same unfriendly hostess, and then she pointed, and this guy walks up, big smile, and I don't remember his name. Actually, I do have his name right here, but I just literally pulled this up when you started talking about this. He's from Morocco, and he had this huge smile, and he says, welcome. And he brought me down to where the buffet was. And I said, I got my card. He goes, that's okay. No worries. You eat. We'll make a plan. No problem. And during our whole encounter, he was bringing water and it wasn't just my table. It was like 6 or 7 other tables. I said, wow. It's like, you do such a good job. I want to tell you that it's so refreshing to have you like so happy. He goes, I love my job. I love helping people and serving and making a difference. And if I can start your day out happy, the rest of your day is going to be amazing. The same guy, same environment, same culture, same pay as everybody else. And I told him, I said, look, I had $5 again in my pocket because I was prepared. Okay. But I said, I don't have any cash. Do you have Cash App or Venmo? He goes, of course I do. And I said, may I please give you a Cash App? And he goes, absolutely. He's like, and so I Cash Apped him. This is from yesterday. I Cash Apped him $100.
Good for you.
Okay. So I sent him $100. This is the point. Not because I'm not trying to be one of those social media guys, look how good I am. There's a point. He came back out, I guess when he got the alert, and he's like, sir, I think you made a mistake. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I think you meant to put $10 and you accidentally gave me $100. I was like, I didn't make a mistake. I wanted to give you $100. He said, but why? I said, because I want today to be the day that you remember that what you're doing is the right thing to do. Because you never know who you're going to meet, by the way, would you hire that guy? I would. I sure as heck would. And the bar is so low right now. Even mediocrity is pretty good. Yeah. And to go to that level, that's life changing. Yeah. And he was so grateful. But I said, I just want you to know that this is your opportunity, because you don't know. Some lady could be the CEO down here. And you're going to find your dream job. And he's like, that is a good point. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, I feel like we should just stop the podcast right there. Be you, get paid. Like it's the lack of expectation and just living in a space of, it will come. And later when I ask you about Bitcoin, I don't know if you are a Bitcoiner, it's how do we reconcile that with the fact that we are in this? And I used to be someone who would say, it's on you, and it's personal responsibility to change your circumstances, to change your life, and everything you're telling us and sharing is so valuable. And then I've gone down this rabbit hole with Bitcoin where it's like, but unfortunately the reality of our human existence in the current Western world especially, but it goes beyond that, is that we have this system of money that doesn't actually support that on paper. it's how all this is coming together for me is really interesting, because you can change your circumstances, you can change your life, and everything you've just summarized is where it starts. It starts with the individual, and his lack of expectation just got exponentially rewarded. So it'd be interesting to see how his life now plays out.
If you ask him and the mean lady, why are you the way you are? You know what they'd say? Because my job, because of my culture, because of my manager, because of my fill in the blank. Anything to become the victim. Oh, and by the way, if I say victimology, that's probably going to trigger somebody also. Like, you can't even say anything. No. You know, you can say anything you want as long as you agree with whatever that narrative is. And if you don't, then you're an evil person.
But that's the perfect example of the polarity, right? So I'm big on this whole polarity thing at the moment, because it's charges. It's like emotional regulation. So you've got, like you just said, you've got two people in the same job with the same manager with vastly different ways of approaching life, which is polarity. One's positive, one's negative, and there's everything in between. But erring on the side of the positive in this situation is the only way it's going to change. And the reason I'm saying that is because you may have done him a disservice in some ways, not your fault, but you've been incredibly generous and rewarded the right thing. He might now have an unrealistic expectation of the next person who tips him. So he needs that to bring him. I don't know. Do you think?
I hear you. I hear you.
It's just getting that balance.
I really don't. I think that's possible side effect, but I really don't. I look at it more from showing what's possible when you do the 100%. Right thing.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when I was leaving to go to my car service. He's like, bye. And the other servers were all standing around and were like, what? And then he started telling them. And I wish it had been like,
oh,
sucker.
Yeah.
But
it's epic.
But I think, again, it comes down to the person and who they are. And money doesn't change that factor. It's just a measuring stick sometimes of dedication. My favorite little video is Snoop Dogg when he was accepting this award. He's like, I'd like to thank me for, working hard. I'd like to thank me for not giving up on myself. I'd like to thank me for working 7 days. Man, that's nobody wants to see the sweat. They want to see the six pack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. And just to go back to one thing you said before as well about you can have the fear of I'm not good enough in some way, or fear of failure. And then you said, or if you don't have either of those fears, you have narcissism. I would argue actually that narcissism is actually just the extreme example of that, because if you've got an awareness of what if I'm not good enough, or what if I fail, you're not a narcissist. I think narcissism is again, it's the opposite, but also an extreme version of those. It's like these two things existing at the same time and both being true, because I think a narcissism actually has got deep-rooted fear of failure and deep-rooted I'm not good enough. They just don't know it yet. So at least having the awareness of it, you're bringing people up. So that positive reward is necessary.
Or they're avoiding it and they cover it up with false sense of confidence,
anger, right? And with the other person the other hostess that you mentioned.
Again, I just violated probably one of my own principles, which is still putting a label on ourselves or someone else, and I think we put labels on ourselves, which is the worst thing to do. Just be. That's why I love Be You, because be do have that whole movement, right? And if we imagine if we shifted our thoughts away from me, I, into them, into you. And as soon as you make that transition, how can I serve her? How can I serve him? It begins to change a lot of times our own life, because we're no longer focused about the things that are irrelevant anyway. Right. We then shift our focus on the importance of other people. And I know that I say that out loud and started pausing. This sounds like mumbo jumbo altruistic thinking, but
No.
it's a basic tenet. It's an ethos that you either have or you don't have, right? And it has nothing to do with the ability to give money or the ability to give your time or to share your talents. It's really just about the willingness to want to make other people okay, opening a door for someone, that type of thing. And what's
Being a good
interesting
person.
is I actually opened the door for someone the other day, and they're like, I can open the door myself. Like, people aren't even willing to receive kindness.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you're touching on so many things, but the BU piece, I think, especially since the rise of social media, there's so many external messages telling you what you should and shouldn't do, that there's a fear of just people wanting to think for themselves as to where they are on that line. So going back to the positive, negative, and we saw it right the way through COVID with politics and vaccine mandates and everything else. There were just so many things. Black Lives Matter. There was everything. Now we've got the gender argument. There's just so many things out there at the moment that are so polarizing and so divisive that people are just, and I was one of them, and I'm pretty outspoken. I just went, I'm getting off social media. I don't know what to do. This is too much. But people, because everyone's so angry and divided, people are even less willing to add their own unique voice, perspective, or view of the world to the conversation and take a place on the line of left, right, red, blue, because it's just so angry. And you know, like you say, rewarding that happiness, someone who's still willing, maybe they're just unaware, which is even better. They're just willing to stand in happiness. It's so self-discovering and offering you something. It's just bringing more awareness to the whole world. There's a ripple effect that people aren't aware of until they just stick a toe out and do it.
I have the answer to this. The reason why this is happening is ego. Yeah. And our deep-rooted desire to be right. And that's I'm not faulting people. I mean, it's genetically wired, human, survival, whatever it is. But here's the solution to it. Because I have friends that I feel like I'm fairly moderate, and I believe some things on one side of this belief structure pretty strongly, and also I see the arguments on the other side, and I try not to be, like one or the other. But there are some things that we, whatever those beliefs are going to be stark. But here's the solution. I have a friend that is so far on the left side, he would make President Trump look like a liberal. Like really far out there. Okay. But do you know that we've never had an argument about disbeliefs or what we, know to be true in our world? And here's why. Because every time, mutual, not just me, him as well. Every time we have a conversation about something, instead of being defensive, instead of saying, no, you're wrong, this is it, you're crazy, instead we listen, and then I argue his position back.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? If he says that the sky is red, and I obviously know the sky is blue, because here's why: we think we know. Yeah. We think we know, but maybe we don't know. So what I'll do is, okay, the sky is red. Okay, I'm going to argue the sky is red on his behalf. What does that look like? How does that position, differ from blue skies? And that ability to step out of the emotion and step into a deeper understanding of appreciating that other position. We, at the end of the day, we may still not change. Maybe he goes from here to here and I go from here to here. But again, we don't have to be interdependent. It's just really about having, and I hate the word tolerance, understanding. Yes. There's no need to tolerate anything. It's just an issue of, if you believe that, and you can, any argument you want to throw out there, and we won't go down that rabbit hole, but whether it's politics or gender identity or right to life or choice or anything like that, it doesn't matter, because I can argue whatever point I want. It's not going to change anything except make me more angry, more distracted from being me by making a difference in other people. So I would much rather just I can believe it, but I also want to understand it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, because it's energy. No one's winning when you're polarized, when we're charged up, when we're angry, or even the opposite, when we're charged up on joy and love and happiness. Like, it's not sustainable. The truth is always in the middle. The balance is always in the middle, and the middle is the whole space between the two charges, right? Like you just said, you and your friend coming a little bit closer is good.
They'll probably cancel your whole podcast show. The Matrix will shut you down. What I'm going to say. You ready?
I'm ready.
I wonder if there's puppet masters throwing out in the media to keep us divided. You know what I mean?
I wonder.
And think about that. If you can divide people, then they don't see. It's like the sleight of hand. Like, look over here, you don't see this, right? And that's not a conspiracy. I just think if you look and open your eyes for because, even in America, I can go on right now. Let's do, I wish I could be clever enough to come up with a headline, but I can have the same story. Let's just use, President Trump indicted in 34 felony charges. He is, for X, Y, Z, as you said. And then I can go on another news site, and it's like, he's been wrongfully charged, and same story, same facts, different headline to pander to a particular set of beliefs for those people that, as opposed to having back in the day, growing up, at least here, I don't know about Australia or the country you're watching from, but newscasters were always neutral either way. That guy sucks. That guy's good. But it was based off actions and not just beliefs and these narratives. And I don't know, what's transpired. I don't know if it'll go back. I think that it swings both ways, so to speak. And as far as the pendulum, and I think hopefully it'll just balance out because we all are human. We all have. I did a video on Instagram not too long ago where I was saying, when you die, if you have children, they'll remember you. And if you're really lucky and you have grandchildren, they'll remember Grandpa Parsley. But that next generation probably won't know me. I don't know my great-grandma's name.
No.
That's how irrelevant you and I are. How about that for motivation?
Yeah.
We will be forgotten in very short period of time. When you die, people will be sad, and then all your shit's given away in about 2 weeks.
And they'll all argue over it. All those people you tried to raise so well will argue over the shit that's being given away. Yeah.
Do you see that clock? That's my grandma Parsley's clock. And my goal, with my first daughter that I had, Alexis, I want to be able to say, I want her to know the history that was on my grandma's mantle clock. And I want you to remember this. And I want you to give this to your kids. And I want you to tell them that story that they can give on. So we have something. I don't know the value of it. Maybe it might be worth nothing. I don't know. But it's a mantle clock that means something, because I remember as a child, going to grandma's and hearing it dong, and it just brings back incredible memories for me. That I can keep. That is a piece of history, but they won't remember. They'll just say, yeah, this was your great-great-grandma.
But you've just made a really good point, whether it was intentional or not. Like, it's an inanimate object, but the intrinsic value comes from the people that are behind it and the stories in the people behind it that you remember.
And they still won't know your name.
Yeah, exactly.
They still won't know your name.
But that's it. And that goes back to my point about, the intrinsic value for all of us as humans that makes us different from other species, and that makes us different from anything else, is this intrinsic value that we have. Money is just this tool, whatever it might be, whether it's the current money that we use or whether it becomes something like Bitcoin. That is purely a communication and an expression of the value between us. And I think the fact that you
hashtag Bitcoin.
Hashtag Bitcoin. It's the fact that you have spent so many years of your life studying communication, which to me is the tool we have for building trust. And I think everything we've just talked about with the division and the polarization of everything is that we don't trust each other because we don't trust ourselves, because we're not spending any time going, what am I? Who am I? What can I offer? What do I love? Because we're just on this hamster wheel of busyness. And you said the same thing, COVID brought about a swift, doesn't matter how much money you're making, whether it's, 100 grand a month, a million a year, whatever it was that your businesses were earning, but they were based on speaking in person, and it got wiped from under you. So you've had to start again. It's all relative, but you've had to sit with, who am I? What do I do? What can I offer? What is my value? And I think thank goodness you spent your life studying that, and you're now able to get there pretty quick. But most people just aren't society isn't being given the time, or individuals don't give themselves the time, because they're turning to media or mainstream media or social media nowadays and being given what that is, not stopping, going, hang on, what do I think? Where am I on this line?
I think too many youngsters are getting their history lesson on Instagram, and it's very dangerous. Yeah. There are five pillars to a relationship: trust, respect, credibility, likability, rapport. But there's another layer to that. There are three basic human needs that everyone has. Number one, everybody wants to feel important. And that could be to someone or to a group or an entity. People want to feel valued, as if they belong to something bigger than themselves. That's why sororities or fraternities or clubs, or, if I'm traveling somewhere and I see an American, I'm like, you're American, that type of thing. Yeah. And I think that the one that most people crave, and if it was a currency, it'd be accepted around the world, is appreciation. People really want to be appreciated. Now, the way they are appreciated may be different, but everybody has those needs of feeling important. That's why you have VIP programs at hotels and things like that. Feeling the value and of course the appreciation. So how can we help meet those needs for other people? Again, move away from you and begin to focus on other people. People say they want certainty, but yet we really are alive when we have uncertainty.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. And I think it's almost like the pandemic or lockdowns, whatever you thought of how it started or what it was, to me, it was the world's way of going, okay, we need this for whatever reason it's happening. And you either got the lesson from it or you didn't. But it's interesting. Every time you're saying your 5 pillars or the 3 basic needs and focusing on other people to get that sense of service, it's like we jump to that top of even the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Everyone wants that. And I think everybody recognizes it when they get it, but they don't know how to sustain it because they are so disconnected from themselves. And so everything you've just said around, was it the five pillars, the trust, rapport, all of those things. Respect. None of us are giving that to ourselves first. So it's this, people get that hit of, how do I serve? Even the guy that you tipped $100, there's going to be days where he goes home and just has no idea how he sustains that for himself alone in his own bubble. And that's the work that I'm kind of becoming just more and more fascinated with, we were talking about NLP
but it doesn't matter. You see, it doesn't, again, we put labels. He's a server. She works at the grocery store. Yep. He's a CEO. The reality is, and I work with a lot of CEOs of big companies, and there's been times where I've received phone calls from someone who I would look up to as, wow, I could never be that successful in business. And they're so uncertain with where they are in life and what they're doing, and they have no one to talk to. They're even more isolated because they have to put on this front. We have to put on this mask of what society says we should be, and we shouldn't be. And it's hard. Maybe that's a wake up call for us to say that, I'm really, the last 2 years, I don't know necessarily if it's changed me, but it certainly has helped me refocus on what I want to be true in my life.
Yeah.
And that's serving other people.
Yeah. And it's the thing
what's interesting? Yep. Sorry, there's a delay. So I promise.
That's all right. No, go.
But you know what's I put my mobile number on all my social media. Not TikTok. We have about 800 or so thousand followers on TikTok, but on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that. I put my mobile number on all those platforms, and I do that because I love hearing from people. Maybe not the scammers that try to call you and stuff, but I do enjoy. I shower with my phone. I take calls whenever I can. I don't do FaceTime in the shower, but I do shower with my phone because I think that like I want to be available because that's my passion.
Amen.
You're not impressed with that one, okay?
No, I'm just absorbing it and also allowing for the slight delay that we've got. When you said about CEOs feeling just as isolated, it was just reminding me of this. I follow a channel on Instagram called Nature is Metal. I don't know if you follow it. It's got about 4 million followers. And it just every day I engage with their posts every day just to make sure I see something of theirs every day, because this whole thing about, we have to wear a mask. It's like, or we have to be this way. We have to be that way. And going back to your original story with the tipping, it's like, just be a good person. It doesn't matter what your role is, because it's the only thing we share is being human, and being human is what makes us not better than other species, but it separates us from nature and from species who will literally kill each other because they're just hungry. It's not personal. There's no emotion, but we have the ability to rise above that. And we are descending when our basic needs are being threatened, or we think they are, we just revert to being animals. And that it's been happening. And it's quite a good segue into the money conversation, because you've already touched on it a few times. So what is money to you? In a nutshell, if you had to encapsulate, what is money?
A worthless piece of paper with a dead president on it. It means nothing. It's, I don't know about your country, but let me just tell you how our country operates. Let's pretend you make $50,000 a year. Okay. Yep. And what I do, I make $50,000 a year. I donate $80,000 to other people, that money that above and beyond what I earn. But that's okay, because I'm going to open more credit cards, and I'm going to live off my credit cards, and I'll defer the interest later. But I'm going to do a cash advance too on this new credit card to give somebody else more money. It is the most comical thing when you look at it. If you and I ran our lives the way most governments run their countries financially, the fiscally responsible, we would be laughed at. They'd be like, you're not worthy of anything, but yet somehow they do. So money is an instrument of trade. It's just an advanced form of barter. I mean, what is Bitcoin worth? The same as what, like you can say, oh, well, there's only so many and it's going to be it's worth what the demand is giving it. That's it. That's why things all ebb and flow. And that's why I'm not a financial expert. In fact, listen to what I tell you to invest in and do the opposite. I bought Bitcoin cheap. Sold at 18,000 before it went up to 80, thought I made a killing. I have Bitcoin Cash that I should have sold at, 2,000. It went down to 100. But, and I'm not saying I didn't go back and buy, a bunch. I have a lot of Bitcoin Cash because I believe that one's going to go up. But at the end, and then some people say, oh, you should be in real estate. Well, yeah, I wish I didn't sell this and that and the other and kept it and all that. But it is what it is. Just pick something and stick with it, right? But money doesn't mean, money is nothing. It's really how you leverage your ability to use it to have what's most important, which are, to me, experiences.
Oh, you wrapped that up really well, because I was ready to jump in when you were talking about Bitcoin Cash, but that's a conversation for another time. And it's coming back to this, just being a good person, because like you say, within a couple of generations, if you have children, and a lot of people aren't anymore, it's not going to be remembered anyway. And as you also said, the bar is so low. I loved your video on that on Instagram recently. And you have touched on this as well, wrapping up. Does money buy happiness?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Well, if you don't believe money buys happiness, you don't know where to shop. I think that people that say money doesn't buy happiness are poor people, and I've been there, and I used to believe that narrative. Growing up, I remember my dad one time said, "People with money are unhappy," and I said, "We're broke, we're unhappy."
Yes.
Money doesn't buy happiness. Money doesn't buy happiness, but neither does poverty.
Nice. So my equation on that is, and it comes back to the tagline of this podcast, wherever it goes, is just that when people can't see that, like, I agree, a lot of broke people say money doesn't buy happiness. Money absolutely buys time. If you can pay someone to clean your house for 3 hours instead of doing it yourself, you now have freedom for 3 hours that you could be spending with your spouse, your kids, your loved ones, your friends, doing something you love. That is going to give you happiness. So I think that's the piece that a lot of people just either refuse to see because they're so unhappy in the first place. They don't want it. If they fix it, what are they going to complain about? So something I always like to wrap up with as well, is actually, before we do this, I want to ask you quickly, when COVID hit and
Is this going to be, wait a minute, is this going to be a rapid fire, 60 seconds, 10 questions?
No, 2 questions, but you'll make it a TED talk, I'm sure. Going back quickly to when, I'm assuming when the pandemic hit was when you started really focusing more on, or you just started sharing a lot more of yourself on social media, building a following, and you fly planes. And you've learned in your personal life, you've trained to be a pilot, and you went flying one day and your engine cut out, and thankfully you landed it very safely and survived to tell the tale, to the tune of something like 30 million views on YouTube or whatever it was. It was actually a mutual friend of ours, Grant Lamb, who showed me the video and said, "Have you seen this?" I said, "No." He said, "Do you know who it is?" I said, "No." And he told me it was you. I was like, holy shit. What that experience, like we've been talking a bit about fear and trusting ourselves. To me, being at the wheel, it's not the wheel, the cockpit of a plane that you're flying when the engines die, I can imagine all of those feelings are at their height. Like, just talk us through what the hell you went through. Because everyone can go and watch it on YouTube. I'll link the video. What did you learn about yourself in that experience? I don't think you need to link the video.
That's out there and it kind of speaks for itself. I think the event, let's just talk about the feeling part. The feeling is you never know how you're going to react to things until they happen. Doesn't matter how much training you have or how much preparation you have. I mean, you squeeze a lime, you know you get lime juice, but until a human is squeezed in a lot of pressure, you don't know how they're going to react. Are they going to freeze up? Are they going to give up? And let's make the parallel more realistic for everybody. You lose your job, then what? You know, we spend our lives so afraid to lose our job. Like, oh my God, what if I the boss is calling me in the office. What if? Okay, what if? You lose your job, you giving up, you quit and you dying, or you make a plan. And you know, these are our irrational thinking. And you know why it was there? Because we used to get chased by saber-toothed tigers and they're going to kill you. And that's fight or flight. And in most cases, we're not getting chased by anything except our own thoughts. And I suffered with panic attacks pretty much my entire life, and to some degree still do from time to time. And I'll never forget one time I was going to go out and speak, and it was a big crowd, and I was thinking, oh my God, what if I have a heart attack? What if I die? What if I pass out? You know, there's 2,000 people in this audience, and I'll never forget, I said to myself at that moment, because I legitimately felt like I was going to die. I mean, unless you've had panic attacks, you don't understand the irrational thinking, how real it feels. And I remember thinking to myself, Brian, if you die, this is going to be the most memorable seminar these people have ever experienced their entire life. Remember the time the dude died in Vegas, man? How cool is that? So
it's true.
So I think that's the real message. The real message isn't whether you were in a car accident or an incident or your fault, not your fault. You know, that part doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. They ran the red light. What matters is what happened, right? And the lesson I learned from many experiences has been, again, the preciousness of, I don't know if that's a word, preciousness, how precious life is and how short this is. And how, like, I don't worry about work. My first call this morning was 5:30 my time. Like, I don't think like that. This week I've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning, not because I want to, just because I wake up and I'm ready to go. and right now it's in the evening, eight after 8 o'clock at night, 8:30 almost. And I don't think about it that way. I think about it as I'm excited to have the opportunity to be here, and I think if we change our thoughts, we change our narrative. And when you change your narrative, you're going to change your results in your life. And but that's a choice. You could choose to stay stuck, or you can choose to push through.
And that goes back to kind of what I was getting at before. It's like everything you're saying about serving other people, that's the feeling people want, but they seem to disregard the fact that that starts with you and talking to yourself. And what are you choosing to say to yourself before you go out there and start interacting with someone else? And whether that be with, life gets more complex when you're in a relationship and you're adding another human who's also doing all of those things. And then you have children, more humans. Like, the human part is what we need to address. And just having these kind of conversations with people like you who are, I'm sure you don't consider yourself as someone who's crushing every area of life, but you've learned a few things. And I think so much what you said is just so on point. It's the individual human can have the same circumstances as someone else and be handling it completely differently. So thank you for your wisdom. Last two questions. What advice would you give to your younger self on knowing yourself and being you? And what advice would you give to your younger self about money? Pick any age. 2 more TED Talks. There you go.
No, like those, and believe it or not, I rarely without words, and I'm sitting there trying to think through. What was the first one? Was the younger self about life?
About being you. Be you, get paid. 2 pieces of advice that you'd give your younger self,
gotcha.
and at what age?
I would say stop, and it's something I still struggle with. People pleaser, approval. We're at different levels, with that. But I think that I would challenge myself to be okay to take chances, be okay to just do what you love, and not be so pressured into you have to go to college or uni, you have to get a job, you have to work for 40 years, you have to, just stop have tos and just start being.
Stop shitting all over yourself.
Shitting all over yourself. And then the money thing is, and this is what we're doing with, we have 3 girls, 16, 17, and 24, and we have them all set up with retirement accounts already. And we save 25% of all their income that they work jobs, part-time and full-time. And 25% goes into investments. Pay yourself first, right? And well, that's a lot of money. Well, yeah, guess what? It's way cheaper now because you got the power of aggregational, marginal gain over a period of 30 years. I didn't have anything when I was 30. I didn't have anything when I was 35. So what's that mean? Well, that means I got to save, hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to catch up. So I don't eat cat food, Yeah. So I just think that my younger self would be diligent of paying yourself first. That would be the thing. Nice
advice. Yeah, 100% agree with all of that, because that feeling now, and I totally agree, at 35 and 40, the 5 years since, I've only just started really appreciating how it all works and what you need to do if you ever want to stop working. I like the idea of loving what I do so much I don't want to stop, but having the option would be nice. And I think that's where the disillusion kicks in, because by the time you get to 35, 40 and you realize how much time you've got to make up or how much money you need to be investing to make up, it's just so unfathomable. People give up and they're just resigned to, oh, well, maybe I will eat cat food. It's so hard to catch up now. Why bother? Just sit back and let the state look after me.
That's a true story. It's actually quite scary when you think about. I know in our country, I don't want to give wrong facts, but it's a overwhelming majority of Americans that don't have $1,000 saved in savings.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be one of the most progressive, rich countries in the world. It's just not true.
Well, let's not go down that rabbit hole now.
I appreciate the opportunity to share with your viewers and you, and certainly would love to see you again in real life sometime.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you? Lastly,
Instagram, LinkedIn,
Instagram.
Brian Parsley Speakers, the handle
That's the
on
one.
all those channels. And it's great because I don't sell anything. So if you like, good content, things like that, I'm probably the worst salesperson, right? Because if you go on my Instagram, it's just about adding value.
Yep.
I just don't sell stuff. It's just not,
No.
I'm word of mouth.
Yeah. That's that you had to be before the online world existed. You were just being a good guy, being you, and making money. So
Be
more
you.
of that, please. Be you, get paid. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for taking the time to tune in to this podcast. I really appreciate it. If you found it helpful or useful, or even if you just feel a tiny, tiny bit better for having listened, there's a couple of things you can do that would take a few seconds that I'd really appreciate you taking the time to do. First thing you can do is subscribe wherever you're listening. If that's on a podcast platform, it's usually just pressing the plus sign next to the main show listing page. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel or give us a like on the video. If you're feeling really generous, you can leave us a comment or a review. That's either on YouTube or the podcast platforms. Once again, if you feel like anyone else in your life might benefit from any of the topics that you hear us talking about, feel free to send them an episode. And lastly, feel free to give me feedback, comments, suggestions, or personal reviews and thoughts and feelings on social media. And tag me so I can thank you. It's at Amy Taylor Says on Instagram or Twitter, or send me an email on amy@bugetpaid.com. And thanks again for listening. Don't forget to keep being you, keep getting paid, but most importantly, just be happy. Oh, and by the way, if you didn't enjoy it, don't do any of those things. You just go have a nice day. Save your time. Thanks.